Hey, friends. I am working on something because every once in a while you have these moments when you know you have to have a tough conversation. And we all love them, right? Nothing we'd rather do than start up a conversation that feels awkward and potentially, argumentative, but hopefully not. More likely, it's just like somebody might get their feelings hurt or someone might not immediately understand where we're coming from and there might be misunderstanding, right? We all love these conversations. I know I do. And so, as I sort of figure out, it's one of these things where like I thought for a while maybe I didn't have to have this conversation. I thought maybe like the issue would work itself out. That has not transpired. It has not magically solved itself. And I am mulling over how to go about that, how to basically lean into a tough conversation and do so with love, with a sense of encouragement and real joy. Joy might be a strong word, but I think actually, ultimately, I think these types of experiences are much more fraught when they remain in our mind. And the longer they remain in our mind, the more fraught they become. That's my message to myself. A lot of times I do this post literally to talk to myself, because if I don't say things out loud, they just go around in my brain in circles. But if I say them out loud, it's like now they have to at least go in a direction. They have to take me somewhere. And I think the message that I need to hear right now is the longer I wait, the more fraught the conversation is going to feel. That doesn't mean necessarily it'll be more fraught when it happens, although that's likely. It just means there will be a whole bunch of convoluted stuff that happens in my mind in the meantime that's probably unnecessary. And that we could just avoid if I would just get on it already. And because, we all know what these conversations are like when they're happening in our mind, right? Anybody ever not had a conversation with someone in their mind and had it go wrong? Or maybe have had ourselves get really righteous or really on our soapbox about our position? Or even just imagining the conversation might make us feel internally cringy and like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to say this horrible thing that I don't know how to say to this person because I think they're doing something so wrong. And then when you actually are faced with that human being, all of a sudden it's like our thoughts magically transform and become more empathetic to that person. All of a sudden it's like, oh, I understand where this person is. This is kind of like the ideal scenario, right? This is when we don't handle the message by email, we don't send it in a text, we actually like get with the person and confront the issue. All of a sudden there's just a tendency to see the other side of it more. And I think that's why there's a bit of the sooner the better to all this, because the longer I do it in my mind, the longer I go over and over what the issue is and wonder about how I could say it in a way that won't offend and that won't undermine the relationship and possibly create an awkward situation. And all the more I worry about that, the more it's just kind of an internal form of torture. Who needs that? Because as soon as I get serious about I am going to have this conversation, immediately it reframes for me. I don't even have to actually have it. That's the trick. I just have to have the genuine intention and the willingness to go have it right now. And my intention completely reframes and my perspective completely reframes. Not that I don't have some of the same concerns. It's just that now I'm thinking about them differently, and I immediately go into the mode of how would I actually communicate this? How will I actually communicate this to the person? Taking into account who they are, taking into account the actual relationship. And I say this is the message I need right now because I feel like I've maybe been sitting on this for long enough that it's time. It's got to happen. So yeah, there's that. That is my spiel to myself. I think, another interesting element comes up for me when I think about this, because there's an aspect of it that my own self-consciousness, or maybe it's self-awareness, but maybe it's just self-consciousness, my own sense of how I affect the situation, what my presence does to the relationship. I feel like I know that when I am ruminating on this conversation, right? I feel like I have a sense of what my presence is. But I don't know that. I don't know how I affect other human beings. I can never have the experience of someone else experiencing me. So again, it's like, I think I'm just giving myself the pep talk to kind of ask for some time from this person and put out there that there's something to discuss. And maybe it will be awkward and maybe it will be painful, but it's at least as awkward and painful right now to let it build up and to let it build into something that's not productive, that doesn't advance things because there's no communication. It's just thought. And I think, maybe the reason I need this pep talk and the reason it's important is because I've seen relationships, I've seen it happen where you take too long to say something, and now there's a lack of trust because somewhere along the line, you realize you're not meeting. You realize you're not telling each other the truth anymore because you stopped. You're afraid to. You're afraid to let the truth out. You're afraid to go into the room and have the potentially tough conversation. But the issue is still active, so it's like you're kind of like avoiding. And now you're entering the conversation, if and when it does finally happen, with a backlog of lack of trust, with a backlog of sort of varying degrees of dishonesty and guardedness around it. So it just ups the stakes unnecessarily. It doesn't up the stakes in a productive way where there's more to gain from the conversation. It just raises the level of tension in the conversation without actually changing the content. So it makes the same content feel like a bigger deal, feel like a bigger problem. So yeah, this is definitely my own kick in the ass that I'm delivering to my own ass because I need it. Because why wait any longer? Why let more air, let more time creep into this? Good. I'm glad we had this conversation. It's very productive. Oh, look at that. My daughter is almost ready for bed. That's my cue, folks. That's where I'm at today, folks. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you. Have a wonderful day. See you soon.